Okay, why don't we get started? Good evening. I'm Brian Chicoine. I'm the medical director at the Adult Down Syndrome Center. I want to welcome you all and really thank you for coming. This is great. As you probably know, this is our 25th anniversary, and as we have a number of events throughout the year, and we wanted to make sure some of them were educational, and so that's what this is tonight. We can't always party. I know you'd like to, but got to have some work. But I'm going to just introduce some of our team and let them run with things this evening. But I certainly am glad that you're here, and there will be time for questions at the end as well as we go through this. So welcome, and Janet's going to start with the connection between physical and mental health. I got the order right? Right? Okay. And then Dr. Dominiak's going to talk about the healthy lifestyle and mental health, and then Katie Frank is going to talk about the social aspects of mental health. So I'm going to, without further ado, I'm going to let these guys get started.
Hello, everybody. I'm Janet Bilodeau. I'm the nurse practitioner at the Down Syndrome Center. Some familiar faces and some not, so nice to see everybody. Okay. So in promoting mental wellness with our folks, certainly the first thing that we like to look at is general health, and how can we optimize general health, and how does general health affect mental health? How we act and behave is affected by many different things. Our health, our nutrition, our sleep, our environment, and our social supports. So we have to be really good detectives. When people come to our clinic and they say that there's a change in their loved one or the person that they're caring for, it's very easy to sometimes think that's just a behavior. That's just part of the Down syndrome. And so we really try to impress upon people that that's not the case. Many, many times there may be an underlying health issue or problem that's going on that our folks just can't always express or present to us in a way that's easy for us to figure things out. So we have to be really good detectives in answering lots of questions. So when we are healthy, we feel good, our mood is good, we tolerate stressors better, things that are going on in our environment. We can better manage those things and have better coping skills. We are less susceptible to illness and injury. So it is always our job to try to promote wellness, which in turn will then promote health and mental health wellness in our folks. Now, when I put this up, I realized, maybe this wasn't a good choice. We're trying to promote wellness, and here I am showing a picture of a cake. But there is a point. This cake has many, many layers, and lots of times when people come to us and say, something is not right with my family member or the person I'm caring for, and many, many times they'll say they're just not acting like they usually do. And one thing I always try to emphasize with people is that, like this cake, there are many, many layers. And many times we have to maybe address one issue that we're seeing, peel that layer away and see what's left, and then keep addressing each layer at a time. So that's more the point of the cake than making you hungry. So common health issues that affect mental wellness. Sleep. I would say probably many, many times when people come in and say that their loved one, the person with Down syndrome, is having issues that seem to be presenting, that there's a change in their behaviors or the way they're acting. Many, many times sleep can be a very common denominator for that. So we always want to promote good sleep habits. Thyroid disorders, very common and can present very much like mental health issues or problems such as irritability, depression, sleepiness, tiredness, fatigue, sometimes anxiety. So we see many issues with thyroid disorders: dehydration, gastrointestinal problems, and of course Alzheimer's disease many times presents in ways that may seem like there's mental health issues. My kids beg me not to put a selfie up here, but anyway, this is how I look in the morning when I don't get a good night's sleep. So sleep disturbances. Poor sleep quality might be not enough sleep. There might be poor sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene is all the things that we do to prepare our bodies to get ready to go to sleep at nighttime, whether that's taking our usual shower, our bath, brushing our teeth, calming down, maybe not looking at electronic devices, all those things that help prepare our mind and our body that we're ready. Insomnia can be difficulty falling asleep and difficulty staying asleep. And then sleep apnea. There's such a high prevalence of sleep apnea with our folks, and that can present so many times in a behavioral way. So we always want to look to these things. Could these be underlying issues that could be causing some changes in the way someone's acting or behaving? Thyroid disorders, hyper or overactive thyroid, again, irritability, sleep disturbances can be very common, as well as underactive thyroid, depression, sleep disorders, tired all the time, fatigue, just things that can present very commonly as some behavioral health issues. Hydration. We find this an extremely common problem for our folks. You know, we're always saying you need to, oh, good job, Matt, you're drinking your water out there. You got it. But we find many times, you know, when you talk to families, are they drinking enough water? Are they keeping well hydrated? Yeah, they're doing, I see them all the time. And, you know, so sometimes I'll say, we need to quantify that, you know, start measuring that out and actually seeing. And I've had many families come back to me and say, oh my gosh, when I really realized how much they really weren't drinking, we really got on board, and can make a huge difference. Dehydration can make, you know, cause me to be confused and irritable as well. And so hydration is extremely important for your wellness and well-being. And then gastrointestinal problems, again, very common issues for our folks. And as my office mate would always say, we're one big alimentary tract, and that, you know, our brain is very much controlled by our gut. And so just to prove that point. Common gastrointestinal disorders that we might see that, again, that may present as behavioral issues, reflux issues, and extremely common for our folks to have those problems, having heartburn and distress. A lot of times it's disrupting their sleep, the reflux might be. So again, they might be not only having the heartburn that they can't really express to us and tell us about, but also then it's disrupting their sleep. So there, you know, you can have many different issues within one problem. Bowel issues, constipation, loose bowels, frequent stooling or infrequent stooling can be a problem. And then, of course, celiac disease is a little more common for our folks and people in the general population. And so we've had people come to our clinic who aren't necessarily displaying the typical signs and symptoms of celiac disease, but there was a change in the way they were acting and behaving, and certainly checking some blood work and other testing to see, and sure enough, they had celiac disease. And when that was modified, their diet was modified, things much improved. Other health things, as we talked about, Alzheimer's disease, again, presents many times early on as just some changes in behaviors, and not even always memory changes, but sometimes just a change in behavior. Vision problems, you know, our folks, because they can't always communicate well what they're experiencing, what they're feeling, certainly vision problems, cataracts sometimes a little more common, keratoconus, some, you know, issues with vision, and that can lead to changes in how someone might behave and act because part of their sensory input is being disrupted. And then pain. Again, our folks have a very high pain tolerance, as many of us know, and can't always express that. Maybe they have discomfort, but they may act out in some way to let us know that there is something wrong. And so, again, we need to look and have a good sense of what might be causing some of these issues. And I think, the take-home point here is that in trying to optimize the health and make sure that some people have many of these health issues, but if we're optimizing them, if we're treating the sleep apnea, if we have the thyroid under control, can we better help to promote mental wellness for these people? And I think also that if one of your loved ones with Down syndrome or the person you're caring for with Down syndrome is experiencing some change in a behavior, sometimes people don't come to us till a year and a half after the issue has begun. We can be much better detectives and help figure out a problem the sooner to the timing of those changes than waiting and thinking, we'll just watch and wait and see, maybe it'll get better, maybe it won't. So always, if you come in, many times we can find some medical issues that may be manageable, treatable, and things can be much more easily remedied. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Erin Dominiak, and I'm presenting on healthy lifestyle and mental health. It's difficult to be optimally mentally well if you're not feeling well physically. I think we all know that. And I don't know if I worded that well, but that's what came out of me today when I made the slide. So that's what went up there. I think we've all had times where we've been sick or not gotten enough sleep or not eating well and taking care of ourselves, and that really impacts the rest of our day. So it's important. When I think about a healthy lifestyle, there'll be a lot of overlap with Janet's because I think there's the three basic things I always think of with a healthy lifestyle are getting good sleep, eating well, and getting plenty of exercise and activity. Those are things that we have control over. Although sometimes it's difficult because we live in a society that might put us in different places that make it difficult. But the great thing is our patients tend to have the groove, which is where they like sameness and routine. And so the thing with the healthy lifestyle is you get someone who gets a good groove, and you have these healthy habits that are wonderful, and they can do them better than anybody else on the planet. So that's the way to use the groove. I don't know if we could trademark that, but use the groove. Other things that I think are, and I'll go into those in a little more detail, but other things that I think are important that Dr. Frankel touched more on is social connections, creativity and expression, and also quiet times. Those are all things that we need as people to be able to live healthy. Sleep. So Janet had talked a little bit about sleep, and I think it's going to come up a lot tonight because it is something that's extremely important and that can cause a lot of problems for people and sometimes be unrecognized because it doesn't always fit the classic, I'm falling asleep during the day. It just might be irritability. It might present as other things. There's even ways in the blood work we can see with certain things if people aren't getting good sleep. So first, ruling out sleep apnea and other health conditions is very important. Limiting caffeine is important. You don't want to have a caffeine groove. Maybe 1 in the morning is good. A thing that I think is really, really extremely important for everybody, and all of these things apply to everybody on Earth. Bedtime routine, same schedule, good groove. Going to bed at the same time every day and waking up every day, studies have shown are extremely beneficial for our health. This gets difficult in the age of modern technology where people have lots of stimulation from iPads and television and Netflix and certain things, and it's really important to cut that off an hour before you go to bedtime and do something quiet and calming, because once you get in the iPad groove, it's really hard to get away from it for anybody. A good sleep environment is important, someplace that's quiet with minimal stimulation, not a lot of light. Having basically a protected sanctuary area where you know you could go to bed is very helpful. And getting enough sleep time, and like I said before, consistent sleep time is very important. Healthy eating, and Janet already talked about adequate hydration. This is something that's very important in our population because our patients don't seem to have that thirst drive that the rest of us do. But sometimes they'll benefit well from having a water bottle that will remind someone that I need a drink, it's still full. Lots of tricks you can do if you don't have the natural trigger in your head to tell you need to drink this much. Having a water bottle where you mark off certain lines where I want to drink this much by this time, having a visual checklist of cups that you can check off to make sure that you've drinking everything that you want for the day in a certain period of time can really be helpful. So kind of using visuals, as our patients are very good visual learners, to help them maybe compensate for something that their body doesn't necessarily tell them to do. Eating fruits and vegetables, always having lots of choices for fruits and vegetables is very important. Trying new things, being exposed to new things is extremely important. And protein, eating lots of meats, cheese, eggs, and nuts. There's also a lot of vegetables that have proteins. This is very important. It's interesting, too. There's certain things on lab work where we could see where people aren't getting enough protein, and I'd say a lot of our patients tend to be on the lower side. They really like carbs. Carbs are delicious, but unfortunately, carbs pack on the weight. Carbs give you rises and falls and blood sugars that don't always make you feel good. You feel good while you're eating them, and then you feel bad later. So recommend limiting carbohydrates, processed foods, sugars, and pop. And again, getting a regular groove for these things, finding those vegetables that you like, those protein sources that you like, drinking your water regularly. Once you get in the groove, then it's set. And finally, exercise and activity. Our patients, people with Down syndrome, tend to be the best dancers on earth. And dancing is a great exercise. You get all your major muscle groups. Our patients have great rhythm with music. So I think that's a fantastic exercise for our patients, because choosing something that you like and you're going to do consistently every day, if you can get 30 minutes a day, it's fantastic. And even if that means going in your living room, putting on the radio and just dancing for 30 minutes. Along those lines, there's lots of great programs. Zumba, I think Dr. Frank will talk about our Zumba group, Special Olympics. I'm a big proponent of a recumbent exercise bike in front of a television, because if you could just pick one 30-minute program that you like every day, you're exercising without even really thinking about it. And because it's recumbent, you don't have to worry about your butt hurting or anything else. You can, even if it takes up like half your living room, just wheel it somewhere in the corner when company's over. Make it part of your decor. But I think that's always a great source of exercise. Walking is great. The problem with walking, though, is you have to have a plan in the winter, because about half the year it's not good here. So if you have a good plan in the summer, if you could find some place to walk, people walk in malls, people walk at fitness centers, on tracks, and having a plan for the winter is very important if you like your summer sports. And then Dr. Frank is going to talk more on social connections and creativity and some programs at the Adult Down Syndrome Center.
Well, Dr. Dominiak made it sound like I'm going to talk about a ton of things today. But I do, I'm going to be sharing some of Grace O'Connor's slides because she wasn't able to make it here tonight. So please bear with me at the beginning. But I'm Katie Frank. I'm an occupational therapist at the center. I've been there about a year, for those of you who haven't met me before. So there are a lot of reasons to stay active and involved, and it really helps with your mental health, because they can, social opportunities with a variety of people just makes it more vital. You can do it through recreational activities, just enjoying a favorite activity. There's creative outlets for expression, so art and music. It just gives us a purpose in life when we have things to do and people to see. Unfortunately, there is a long waiting list in Illinois for funding for adult services. But it is really important to start beginning to think about transition when your loved one's in high school and as they transition into adulthood, because we do see that there are a lot more changes in behavior when they're not used to that routine. Like Dr. Dominiak kept saying, there's this groove. Well, so when they're in school, they know they wake up every morning, they go to school, they see their friends, they come home, they might have after-school programming. Then once they're adults, they don't have that same routine. And so it's really important to try to consider that before it happens, be a little bit more proactive and look into services. So if there are any questions about that stuff, especially the funding, please reach out to Grace. I am by no means an expert in the funding in the state of Illinois, but Grace can definitely provide some information, some more resources on that. But there are also some other opportunities to think about. So there's employment, and employment can look like a variety of things, and it may not be full-time, and that's okay, but there's really good social opportunities when employment's involved. There's also recreational programs, whether it's through the park districts or special recreation or Special Olympics. There are, alternative all-day programs that special rec programs are beginning to offer. Volunteering is a really big thing, whether it's at hospitals or daycares, different doctor's offices or libraries, and that can bring a component like employment just without the pay, but again, it's that social opportunity where they're getting out, they're meeting people, and they're having an opportunity to be social. And then even through religious organizations, so whether it's church groups or Sunday school and things like that. There's also some Down syndrome support groups in the area, so whether NADS has opportunities or Ups for Downs, Gigi's Playhouse, there's Gigi University and Hugs for Mugs. Even some of the community colleges now are offering programming for individuals with developmental disabilities, so at Harper or Elmhurst, Judson, and National Lewis. And then there's also alternative programs that happen throughout the day, things like Arts of Life or Center for Enriched Living, Our Place, and Sunshine Center. And then there's theater groups. There's a ton of them. So Ups for Downs does things, Special Gifts Theater, you name it. I feel like there's a number of different theater organizations throughout the Chicagoland area. But at the Adult Down Syndrome Center, I know Dr. Dominiak had mentioned this, we have Zumba classes. They're on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, and we have staff from right around the corner down here at the fitness center come over and provide Zumba classes twice a week. They do it in, I forget how many week sessions, 6-week sessions. So we have our last one this week, we take a week off, and then we're going to be starting again. We also are getting ready to start up the music group again. And so this is a partnership with the Park Ridge Civic Orchestra, and it's going to start Wednesday, September 20th. It's going to run for 5 weeks. It's from 3:30 to 4:30, and there is a small fee for this. So it's $5 a class. They're asking that you pay the $25 at the first class. And then today was our last day of Garden Club. So it was a 16-week partnership with the Chicago Botanic Garden, where they provided the supplies, and the participants learned how to plant the flowers and vegetables, and they watched the vegetables grow. We got to eat them. We did a lot of different gardening activities, even with like arts and crafts. It was really a phenomenal opportunity for us. We were really lucky we were able to offer that. And then there's also volunteering here at the hospital. So here are 3 of our friends who volunteer here at the hospital. Well, I think this slide's supposed to go last, the next one, so I'm going to just skip it, Laura. Isn't that later? Is that your slide? Yeah, all right. Sorry about that. All right, so other things we're getting ready to offer. One of the biggest reasons I was brought on to the center was to continue to offer social skills groups more consistently, and now we have a schedule in place to make sure that that happens. So these are the flyers for the social skills groups we're getting ready to offer. For the 12 to 14-year-olds, we're going to continue to offer it just one time a month, which we were doing just as a trial period. And this is a group where we're going to be using games mostly to teach social skills. So they're going to learn how to introduce themselves and like some of the conversational skills and how to wait and how to take turns and things like that, but in a natural environment where it doesn't feel like they're at school still, and they just get to practice these in a very social place, which we also found with the garden club. that they naturally were coming, week after week, asking where someone was, and they started to gather these conversational skills because they were comfortable with the people around them. So we found that just natural environments are really making it an easier way to teach the social skills. And then we're getting ready to offer 2 different groups for healthy relationships. So we're going to do 15 to 21-year-olds and then 22 and older. Most of the topics are the same between the 2 groups, although with the younger group I'm going to talk more about public and private, and I'm not going to cover that as much with the older groups. But then we'll cover self-esteem in both groups, talking about social etiquette and manners, working on conversational skills and social boundaries, talking about the difference between friendship and dating, and then talking about some of those dating concepts, who to date, where to meet them, how to ask someone out on a date, talking about flirting and crushes, talking about breaking up and handling rejection. So I think, healthy versus unhealthy relationships. I think those are all really important skills that our guys need to learn about. And these are free groups. The 15 to 21-year-olds will meet on Wednesdays at this point, and then the 22 and older will be on Thursdays for the first 6 weeks. And those groups are actually full right now. But then we'll start them back up November. So November 1st, the older group will start on Wednesdays, the younger group will move to Thursdays, and I'll run it for 6 more groups. So I'm currently recruiting for those. If you're interested, you can always be added to a wait list, and if someone drops out, I can let you know. All right. Then the other reason I was brought into the Adult Down Syndrome Center is really to look at sensory processing. And what we found is that by using some sensory strategies, we're really able to address some of the mental health aspects that we've been seeing. So the first thing I always start with is proprioceptive input, and that's input into your muscles and joints. And what it really does is it just kind of helps reset the body. And you can do this naturally. I've got, joint compressions one way. It's like doing a push-up, but someone's doing it to you. Just like natural activities you do around the house, vacuuming, sweeping, mopping, carrying in the groceries, carrying laundry to the laundry room. Anytime you're using your muscles and joints, that's going to be natural proprioceptive input. And then also with physical activity, so all the things that are going to keep you healthy. So whether you're riding a bike or going swimming or going to Zumba, dancing, all that physical activity naturally gives you that input into your muscles and joints. And how I like to explain it to people is that your sensory system, it's your nervous system. So it's the nerves that connect, your brain to all the things that your muscles do. And it's like electrical wiring. So if there's a kink in it, in electrical wiring, the lights are going to flicker. Well, that same thing's going to happen inside your body. And so if you have that feeling that like fireworks are going off or those lights are flickering in your body, you don't know what's causing it, you don't know how to stop it, you might act out. So we might see changes in behavior because there's actually something wrong inside with your sensory system. So if we do proprioceptive input, it kind of just resets the body, turns the lights all the way on or all the way off, or it shuts off those fireworks. But again, we have to roll out all the medical before we can really see if it's sensory. So, sleep can impact it. All these things that Janet and Dr. Dominiak were talking about, we need to make sure that those aren't the cause, and then we can start to address the sensory system. So I brought some things up here right now that we'll go through. But I wanted to show you that there are handouts available on the Adult Down Syndrome Center's webpage under resources. The one on your left is all about proprioceptive input. So what I just told you about how, it's input into your muscles and joints and what times that you can use it. So you can use proprioceptive input for someone who has trouble transitioning. They're really slow to get started in the morning. So maybe you do some joint compression or some other kind of proprioceptive input activity really fast, then they can get out of bed and start their morning routine. They don't want to transition out of the house, to run the errand that you need them to. So maybe you do some proprioceptive input to get them out of the house. Perhaps you can see that they're starting to escalate because something's going on. They're going to, there's some behavior, whatever their behavior of choice is. You see that might start to happen, so you can kind of recommend some proprioceptive input, maybe even that quiet time that Dr. Dominiak was talking about. So that they can kind of just unwind. And you can have some of these sensory things that I'm going to show you available for them in their quiet space. The one in the middle is a handout on joint compression. I have one on both upper body and lower body, and I'm happy to demonstrate it for you guys today. And then this last one on your far right is affordable sensory equipment recommendation. So what happens is a lot of times OTs and at OT clinics, we have all this big expensive equipment, and it's ridiculously expensive, and no one can get that in their house. Well, I found some ways to make it a little bit more affordable, things that you can find locally that if some of this stuff works, you can get it not a discounted price, but you don't have to look at like OT catalogs to find this equipment. So there's a whole handout in the resource section about affordable sensory equipment. So before we go on, Laura, can you guys still hear me okay if I don't use the microwave or the microphone? Oh man, it's a long day. So actually, this is Dr. Dominiak's favorite. She named him Sammy. He's a weighted snake. He weighs just under 4 pounds. So you can easily wear him on your shoulders. And when I put him on, I immediately just feel relaxed and I get like tingling in the rest of my body that I'm calming down. So I'm going to pass all this stuff around if you guys want to try it. I'm not going to give it to Dr. Dominiak because she will never give it up.
No one else will ever get it.
I also have, this is a modified version of a weighted lap pad. So this is actually an X-ray apron. So if weighted vests or weighted lap pads might work, you can check with your dentist. Sometimes they might be getting rid of their lead vests, and you can use that as an option for a weight. But this weighs 4.2 pounds, and you can just, when you're sitting, kind of set it on your lap. Oh, thanks, Janet. And then this is a weighted blanket. So this one weighs 9 pounds. I have it so that each one of these has a different weight in it, so I can actually modify the weight, which is what makes it really great at our clinic. Because when you use weighted equipment, you want it to be 7 to 10% of someone's body weight, give or take, but you can always go less. And the thing is that if you look on websites, a lot of times they might say 7 to 10% plus X number of pounds. Well, I'm going to tell you, don't ever do the X number of pounds extra, and always talk to an OT before you do anything with weighted equipment, especially trying it, because what works with one person might not work with another person, and it's not worth spending the money on it if it's not going to be effective. I'm not going to pass this one around, but you're welcome to come up at the end and try it. It works out best, honestly, when you're laying down, which is why I passed around the weighted lap pad instead. The other thing I really like to try is vibration. So this is I would not always start with this if someone has seizures, because vibration sometimes could cause a seizure, so you have to be careful with that. But this is just a handheld vibrating massager. You or someone or the person can, massage their arms, their legs. You can do their back, so we can pass that around. This is a pretty new battery, though, so I just want you to know it's pretty intense. But the vibrating snake is really good in that sense, then, that when you turn it on, you can put it in a chair, and then someone can sit and kind of get the natural input, and you don't have to do it for them. So if they like something like this, on that handout, there's a vibrating cushion that is available that's fairly inexpensive that you can get, and then they can always turn things on and off. The other thing that's really good, especially because it's more portable, you can kind of carry it with you, is just Theraputty. So Theraputty has resistance to it. It's Play-Doh with resistance, and you can just kind of play around like this. You can kind of do whatever you want, squeeze with it. It's like a stress ball, and it's really good. It can fit in your pocket, in your purse, and if you ever need it, you can play with that. So again, this is not everything you would ever use, but it's a good start just so you can get an idea of some of the sensory equipment. And the thing is that we use this, you don't have to have sensory processing disorder in order to benefit from some of these strategies. We've seen it effective with some of our patients who've come in with anxiety or obsessive compulsive disorder, or even self-talk, that some of these sensory strategies are enough that what is happening is the anxiety is causing these behaviors, and if we can kind of calm the anxiety, then maybe they can participate more effectively in their environment. The other thing that seems really helpful with trying to help with the social aspects of mental health are using visual supports. So visual supports are pictures, words, or other images utilized to help communicate. So you can see your far left, like, how are you feeling today? Having something like that so they can tell you can help. Can also be used to share or manage expectations or rules. So a first-then board is great. First we're gonna do homework, then you get to watch TV or something like that. And that just helps set the standard. They know what to expect. They might not act out because they know that once they're done doing what they don't want to do, they're going to get their preferred activity. Dr. Dominiak even talked about this, the water for today. So you can have a visual with maybe they need to drink 6 glasses of water, and every time they do that, then they can check off that they had that glass of water. And then you can also do it to provide reminders. So this bottom one, that's the reminder of their morning routine, their visual schedule. They go to the toilet, they eat breakfast, brush their teeth, get dressed, and get their backpack. Or even just my weekly schedule. You can have like all the different activities maybe that they do during the week on there just as reminders. And then visual supports can also teach new skills. So on the far right, it's just the bathing routine. So maybe they know how to take a shower, but these are just those visual cues in the shower so that you don't have to be there. So that's the other thing is that parents and caregivers are constantly saying, do this, do this, do this, and it can be really frustrating for the parent or caregiver as well as the person with Down syndrome. It's like that nagging wife. And so this way it helps with independence, and it helps just them realize that they can do it on their own, they don't need you, and you can kind of back off a little, and it's just that reminder. There are some resources, just visual supports we have as resources on the website. You're welcome to look at. We have something on personal space and healthy eating and things like that, but I'm also available to make more individualized and personalized visual supports for you. So even today I was talking to a family, and they were said that they have to go out of town for Thanksgiving, but where they're staying is not the same relative's house. They moved to a different house. So we talked about, well, why don't you get pictures of the old house? We'll talk about how they're not staying there, and this is the new house, and that all these things to help so that with this change, the loved one with Down syndrome is not going to have a breakdown because he's not staying at this house that he's used to staying in. So visual supports can be used for so many different things. And again, there's actually a resource on visual supports on the website. And then the last thing I wanted to share is that I am available to do sensory evaluations. And they take about an hour to an hour and a half. It's highly individualized. I'll review the current status, current issues, current needs. We'll try a bunch of the sensory equipment, and I'll make recommendations. And that I'm available Monday through Thursday for appointments, and there are some late appointments available. It's just whether or not we'll be having the social skills groups. Thank you.
So we want to open it up for questions. Before I do, I just make a couple comments. One is it was fun to actually hear. I don't get to hear these three speak most of the day. I'm not in the room with them, and so it's good to see we're basically on the same page. Although each of us has our own special little approach that's unique. But that was fun to hear. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. And I see these people every day. A lot of the things we talked about, we didn't talk about any medications, as you may have noticed. This is about promoting health, and I say that at this point in my career, if I could never have to write another prescription for a mental health drug, I would be a happy physician. Now I know that's not really possible, but I think that all the things that these guys talked about, I think really are trying to move us in that direction. And if we can, with doing all those things, if we could cut the medications by 25% or 50%, that would really be special. Because I think there are a lot of issues there that really, unfortunately, as they go farther along, end up leading towards medications. There's an old missionary story where the missionary is in the middle of the stream, fishing people out of the stream. And at some point he gets out of the water and goes upstream and stops the person from throwing the people in the water. And so, that's all this today was someone's got to stop folks from throwing people in the water. And that's what they're talking about. And it's all very connected, as you can see as well, physical and mental and social. I'll tell my favorite Janet story. So years ago, Janet was seeing a patient who had developed some health issues and was not performing on his job as well as he had before, and he was going to get fired for doing that. And Janet made a recommendation that perhaps they have a retirement party instead of letting him get fired, which Janet thought would be very hard on him to be fired. And someone said to Janet, why are you getting sort of, in a sense, why are you sticking your nose where it doesn't belong, in a sense, is what sort of roughly the way it was. And Janet came to me very, very disturbed by that, and I said, Janet, that is about the highest compliment that you could ever have gotten, because that is what we're all about. I mean, that's really, we're looking at the whole person, and I think that's really what this was all about, all the things that they talked about this evening. And the other thing is, and why the social skills groups is one of the things I was thinking about as Katie and others were talking. That missionary story really is social skills. A lot of our patients had social skills training in grade school and high school, and then they become adults, and that training is gone, and so they might have forgotten some of the things they learned in grade school and high school, but also now the rules have changed. What worked in high school and grade school may not be would work in a work setting or some other adult setting. And so I think these are things that our patients need to have continued opportunities to learn anew, but also practice anew. And I think that it's so exciting. The clinic opened 25 years ago this year, and I can tell you some horror stories of the patients' social situations that we saw 25 years ago. And the world has changed so dramatically. But I think sometimes our patients really have not gotten the training and the skills to participate in those new opportunities. And so I think that those are what the social skills groups are about. And so we'll not only have the groups, but we're also going to be doing putting more of this online and things like that. So look at, if you're on Facebook and have not liked our Facebook page, please do so. There's a lot of information. Really, it's a daily post. We try not to do more than one a day. Occasionally we do a couple, but really we try to do no more than one a day. In fact, that's my rule on my personal Facebook page. If anyone's posting more than once a day, I'm pretty much likely to unfollow them, because enough is enough. But we try to do just one a day, and there's a lot of information on there. But also actually, if you just Google Adult Down Syndrome Center Facebook, you can find us very easily. And then also, if you Google Adult Down Syndrome Center and look for the Advocate, our page on the Advocate Healthcare webpage, there's a lot of information on there as well, and that's increasing, and that'll be changing over time, because ultimately we're going to have. Ultimately, the way it's going to look is 3 sections. It's going to be, really information for our patients, information for families, and information for professionals. So sort of one topic, but then broken down into the 3 different categories, if you will. So that's coming. So let's.